Well, when we last left off of last season, Cersei had completed what we would like to say is the royal flush. She got rid of everybody who was in her way and assumed the throne for herself. And she had no problems doing so, with the help of a little green Kool-Aid. And man, was it a sight to see when she executed her vengeance. Her son, King Tommen, could no longer stand to see it. And as long as she was still the queen, that's all that really mattered. As we all know, the years have not been kind to Snow. And unexpectedly, he was named King of the North. Lord Baelish sat and looked and watched quietly in the cut from afar, while Sansa always knew what he wanted deep down inside, and she damn sure didn't want to give up to being with him. Theon's favorite toy was taken away, while his uncle wanted to take everything else away, including his sister and his life. A man and his daughter once offered kindness to Arya and the Hound. And although the Hound had been through a whole hell of a lot since then, he found his way somehow joining the Brotherhood. Sam and Gilly made their way to Old Town. The army of the dead grew stronger and closer, and actually Hodor was no longer able to hold the door. The one who has never spoken sure had a look that spoke 1,000 words. Bran became the new three-eyed raven, and we'll learn how he becomes more adept at using the power. Stannis at Dragonstone, who once admired the artwork and the construction of the table and the building, was utterly destroyed and his army wiped out. With the death of Daenerys' brother and Aemon Targaryen, the Maester at the Wall, she became the last true Targaryen alive in the world. Arya made her way to the Freys for revenge, and Frey nearly crapped on himself as soon as he saw her and knew what was about to happen next. Lady Stark got ahead of herself, literally, and what goes around comes around. Frey holds a special feast to thank all of his men for the work that they did at the Red Wedding. He then throws a special toast to all of his favorite family and countrymen that mean a damn. He asks them to stand and celebrate with him on a job well done. And before they can enjoy the drinks, then they start to realize something actually was going wrong here. And of course comes the big reveal, which is none other than Arya Stark. She has learned her lessons well from Jaqen H'ghar and is now a true faceless man. She happily tells the remaining girls a message that if anyone asks what has happened here, you make sure to let them know winter has come for House Frey. In the end, the Frey are no more, and that's what the hell they get. When we left off, they said that winter was coming, and now we see that it is actually here, and it also has brought something with it, which is the army of the dead. And they also have, zombie giants. They will be a beast to deal with. After a long journey back and forth to and from the wall, Brandon Stark finally makes it back to the wall safely and is greeted by the knights of the wall, the black black knights, and we'll see what happens. The men of the Night's Watch greet him. They speak and talk. He doesn't know who he is, so Brandon Stark has to explain and prove to him his case. And of course, he lets him through. King Jon now addresses his new men of the North and explains to them the importance of dragonglass and about the army of the dead that marches on the wall, and how important it is to get as much dragonglass as possible, because it's the one thing that can help even the score and allow men to fight against the army of the dead. He tells them that every man, woman, and child available to go and dig and mine as much dragonglass as they can find. Jon said that we needed every man, woman, and child working, fighting, doing whatever it takes, and one of his own men, of course, stood up and questioned what he said, and Lady Mormont, true to her nature, got up and checked his big old ass and put him in his place, and like only she could, and left him speechless. Tormund receives his instructions from Jon, which, believe it or not, is now his job to guard the castles on the wall, and now he's pretty much a de facto Night's Watch. Isn't that something? Now the Wildings are now members of the Night's Watch. Jon makes an order in regards to what should be done with the Umbers and the Karstarks, and Sansa disagrees with him publicly, which puts in to question his orders. They publicly go back and forth in front of everyone until he puts his foot down in front of her and in front of everyone to let it be known that his word is what stands and not hers. They both begin to see that, hey, this isn't going to work unless you trust me and I trust you. Now, trust in my judgment, because I'm not going to do you wrong, and I'm not the same as some of these other men that you've been around, such as Joffrey or, the other piece of crap that was holding her hostage. Jon then calls before him the remaining Karstark and Umber heads of the family. He then asks them for an oath of allegiance and loyalty. They happily accept, and everyone agrees with the decision that was made by Jon, and it turns out to be a good decision at the moment. In the end, it all works out perfectly for Baelish, because he just gets to lay in the cut and look for an opening where he can drive a wedge between the two of them and hopefully bring her against him. And then that leaves it for him to be with her and puts him in place to be the Lord of Winterfell. Jon explains to Sansa that it is important that you don't question me in front of other people, because you undermine my authority, you make me look bad, you're making everything put into question. And then she tries to throw it at him, well, I can't question you now, and he's saying that's not the point, it's about how and when you do it. And then she tries to throw a shot at him, as in, well, that's how Joffrey was, but he's nothing like Joffrey, and he throws that back at her, so now I'm Joffrey, and then she has to, bring her words back, and then actually kiss his butt and say, well, no, you good at this, I'm sorry. And in the end, she was wrong. The Maester of Winterfell then shows up and gives Jon a message from a raven that they had just received. The message is from Cersei, saying, come to Winterfell, come to the King's Landing and bend the knee or suffer the fate of all traitors. And it's basically a threat. And either way, he probably would die if he went. If he went, she would kill him. And if he didn't go, she would want to wage war. Now he know that winter's come, and the Lannisters is a southern army, and nobody has ever came that far north during winter. But they kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, because north of the wall is the army of the dead, and then south is the Lannisters who want them dead. So now he's kind of screwed, and now he has to determine which one is more important and which one can they fight first, or, you know, whatever the case, he got to decide what move he's going to make. Cersei is finally where she wants to be, alone, standing on top of the world. Cersei talks to Jaime about Tyrion and Daenerys and their enemies, and how it's partially his fault that he killed their father, and that he loved Tyrion, and now Tyrion is leading Daenerys and her army to come and destroy them and everything they love. And he comes back at her about, well, what about Tommen? We haven't talked about him. And she kind of just brushes him off a little bit, and he's saying, hey, what's going on? I mean, am I in danger? Should I be afraid of you? I mean, what's going on? And who are you? And she's just kind of brushes him off and says, you know, hey, we the last Lannisters that count. And whoever wins this, their dynasty will go on for 1,000 years. And he like, how? We don't have any damn kids. And she like, well, just us then. And in the end, you know, they screwed. No matter what happens, they don't have anything to look forward to. Cersei talks about how they're surrounded by enemies in every direction, with Daenerys, with the Tyrells, with the Northmen, you know, with the people in Dorne. And, you know, it's only up to them to destroy them all. And he's saying, well, actually, we have no help. We are the side that looks like the losing end, and so we are screwed. And then she hintfully says, well, not exactly. I'm the one that's been listening to Father the most throughout all the years, and I know the importance of allies. And she hints that she had a trick up her sleeve, and I wonder what that could be. She asks Jaime what's the most likely landing spot where Tyrion and Daenerys will land, and he explains to him about Dragonstone, and that, you know, it has deep water for the ships and strategic location and everything. And so she's starting to think and decide what she's going to do with that information. Other thing about Dragonstone is that it's an island. It's not too far from King's Landing, and it was created by one of the Targaryens. So it's a unique place for them to land. And here comes her new allies as they arrive. Literally fresh off the boat. Euron explains and pleads his case on why he's the best option that she has as an ally, and how with them working together they can destroy all of their enemies together, and how he always wanted to marry a beautiful queen, and that she is the most beautiful woman in the world, which is a bunch of crap. She's not ugly, but, you know, we all know she's not the most beautiful woman in the world. And that, you know, she accused him of murdering his own brother, and he throws a shot. Yeah, it was great. Maybe you should try it. Jaime didn't like that one. And then she says, well, I don't believe you. Prove it to me. And he leaves and says, I won't come back until I got a special gift, specially for you. Easy. Now we see Sam working in the Citadel as a librarian, and also as a dookie dumper, picking up bedpans from nasty, stinking, dying and sick maesters and dumping it in there. It's just disgusting. While working as a librarian, he notices a certain set of books that are locked and caged up. And he has his eye on that because he knows that's where the real knowledge is. And he knows that he's got to race against time to get all of this stuff figured out with the White Walkers before it's too late. in the meantime, they still got him dumping dookie. I don't know how he get on his hands and knees and dump that with his nose so close to all that crap. I know it's disgusting. No wonder he want to throw up. All those bedpans on the rack behind him, I know it just stinks to high hell in there. One of the many subjects that he's learning about is anatomy. And he's weighing organs and livers and different things while talking to the Grand Maester of the Citadel.
I was wondering.
Sam asked the Grand Maester while he's there if he would allow him to read those books behind the gate so that he could learn more about the White Walkers, because time is getting running out, and it's important for him to learn as much as possible so that he can be able to be of some assistance when the time comes to fight. And the Grand Maester is saying, well, you know, as much as you keep talking about it, I believe you that it's real. And Sam is surprised because no one believes him anywhere. But he say, although I believe you, no, you can't do it because it's for Grand Maesters, and every generation always believes that it's the end of the world. And he goes down the list of which generation thought what was going to happen, and then he explains to him basically no, because although you may think it's going to be the end of the world, it won't be. And so since Sam knows that time is running out and, you know, bump what he talking about, time is of the essence, he waits for him to fall asleep, sneaks in his room, and steals the keys. He then makes his way to the library, where he helps himself to the books that he feels is needed for him to learn what is necessary so that he can help and make a difference when the war comes. As we see, Pod is still learning how to fight from Brienne, and he seems to be getting better, but I guess compared to her, nobody would look too good, huh? As she teaches Pod, she rubs him up, and of course Tormund's had his eye on her for a while, and he's just you know, just licking his lips, wishing he could just fight with her and have her rough him up, and he rough her up, because man, he would just be in love with her. And as Pod walks away, he say, you have no idea how lucky you are. Baelish is up to his old tricks, doing what he does best, trying to put thoughts in people's head, mess with Sansa's happiness, trying to see what little wedge he can drive between her and Jon, and how deep it can go, and whether it may be able to leave a big enough space for him to slither his way into. In the end, she knows she can't exactly tell him to go kiss off, because if it wasn't for his army and the Knights of the Vale, the battle would have been lost, and everything would have been over with. She would be dead, Jon would be dead, and Winterfell would be in the hands of Ramsay. So she's kind of stuck in the middle, but she's learned a lot since her time as a girl in King's Landing, and she's not so easily fooled, and she's not a dummy. Arya's on her way back to King's Landing, and on the way she hears some men singing. Turns out to be Lannister soldiers, but they were actually a nice friendly group, just, you know, soldiers that had a job to do. And she stops, they offer her food. She said she doesn't want to do it. They say, hey, it's okay, we offer it to you, it's fine. And they ask her, you know, they tell her about their family and their life, and they ask her what she doing, and then she says she on her way to kill the queen. And then they all look at each other and start laughing, because what is this little girl gonna do? And then she starts laughing with them, because she knows, hey, I guess that would sound kind of funny to those group of men. Hey, there's our old friend, the Hound and the Brotherhood. And after a long ride in the cold, in the wind, they are looking for shelter. It's starting to be a little unbearable, and they come across a location that they think is suitable for shelter. They come across this cabin by this farm, and they're saying, hey, this looks like a great place. And he's saying, no, this ain't a good place. These people don't want us here. Let's keep going. And they're saying, what do you mean? There's no people here. There's no smoke coming out the chimney, no light, no nothing. What are you talking about? We're going in there. And he's trying to talk them out of it, but they don't want to hear it. And so they enter the place. Once inside, we realize it's the home of that man and the daughter who opened their house up for him and Arya so that they can have a place to be warm and eat. And now look at them. They're dead. They're skeletons. They're rotted. And now he realizes that in some way, somehow, it's his fault. Whether he killed them or not, he might as well. When he hit them upside the head and stole their money, he left them with no way to do anything. They investigate and they ask him, well, did you know him or anything? And he says, no, I didn't know him. Or how do you think they died? And then he say, I don't know, they're dead. And then they look and they see it's a knife there with blood on it. And they say, well, they were probably starving. The man probably cut her throat rather than see her starve to death. And he probably killed himself afterwards. And so now the Hound is thinking, damn, if I would have stayed and helped him farm, then neither one of them would be dead right now. Those were two people that didn't deserve to die, and I pretty much let them die. I feel guilty about that. He doesn't say it, but you can see it's written all over his face. The Hound talks to Daenerys and asks him, why are you back? I've known a lot of people and they never came back, and I've known you for a while, and you're not a bad guy. I mean, I don't necessarily like you a lot, but you ain't a bad guy, and what's so special for you to come back? What is it? And he say, you know what, I wonder the same thing. The only thing I can say is that the Lord's not done with us yet. And so he's saying, oh, well, whatever about that, you say this, you say that, how do you know? And he's saying, well, it's no man can tell you, you have to see for yourself. And then Thoros tells him to come here and take a look. He tells him no one can give you the answers you seek. Only the fire can give you the answers you seek. Step closer and look into the fire. And if everyone that remembers that's been watching the show, the Hound is afraid of the fire, and he says, damn, just my luck, I'm here with a fire worshiping group that I'm stuck with, of all people. And so then they tell him, come on, look. And so then he goes closer and he looks, and then what do you know? He actually sees the visions. He sees the wall. He sees the army of the dead. He sees the dragons. He sees everything. And now he starts to realize, wait a minute, maybe these guys are not full of crap. Maybe it is a bigger picture to all of this, and maybe I do have some part in it. So, who knows? As they fall asleep, Thoros hears in the middle of the night some noise. He goes outside and he sees the Hound Clegane digging a hole for the dead. And he asks, what you doing that for? And he's saying, I'm burying the dead. And he say, you must have known these people. And he say, no, not really. And which he really didn't know them that well, but he was one of the reasons that they died. I mean, there's a lot of factors, but he didn't help make their lives any better. He actually was there and made their lives worse. And so Thoros sees that he's trying to do good and that he may be a changed man, and so he picks up a shovel and tries to give him a hand and help him bury the dead. And then the Hound tries to say a few words over the bodies, but being the, brute that he is, he can't even remember the damn words and just has some half-ass thing he says, but his heart was in the right place. We see Sam hard at work, reading as much as he can to learn as much as he can, as fast as he can in Old Town, so that he be prepared for when the winter is finally here and the army of the dead is at their doorstep everywhere. And Gilly says, why don't you get some sleep? And he's saying, hey, the army of the dead don't sleep. So, I'm doing my best to do what I can, whether that means getting as little bit of winks as possible. And there's Gilly playing with little Sam, and that boy is getting big real quick, huh? Just let you see how much time has passed. They've been there at least a year or so since they got there, because he was still just a little baby when they got there, maybe 1 year old, and now look at him. Probably 2.5, 3 maybe. Probably 2. So, he's been there about a year maybe. Gilly even pulls out a book for him to read, Legends of the Long Night, and it's got, a dead man walking on the cover of it. Finally, inside of the book that he was reading, he found something that was useful. He found the map of Dragonstone, and on that map it shows where there's a huge mountain buried of dragon glass where it's found naturally. And so he decides to get a raven out as fast as he can to Jon, to let Jon know that, hey, this dragon glass there, you need to go there and get as much of it as you can as fast as you can. I don't think he realizes that Jon is no longer a member of the Night's Watch because they killed him. And when Jon was brought back to life, he decided his watch is ended because it's a watch that is there till death. He died, and so it never said even if you come back, you're still a member of the Night's Watch. And so now he's gone. But Jon's good friend is now the Lord Commander, and so I'm sure if he gets the message, he'll send it to Winterfell so that Jon would get word of what's going on. As Sam is on his patrol, doing dookie duty and meaningless jobs in the Citadel, a hand grabs him while he's picking up the bowls of food, where these men are all stuck behind these doors, and the arm looks gruesome and grotesque. But the one thing about this arm is that it has a familiar voice attached to it, and the questions that he asks is she here yet? Okay, and of course my suspicions is that that's the voice of Jorah Mormont. And the last time we saw him, Daenerys gave him an order to find a cure because his life belonged to her, and to find a cure and then return back to her. And so I guess going to the Citadel, where the smartest people in the world, the known world, reside, is the best thing he could do, which was actually pretty smart for his part, because where else could he go? And so while he's there, you know, he's trying to get as much news as possible. And so he's asking him, is she there yet? And Sam says, who? And then he says who it is, and then he says, no, not that I know of. Shortly after the hand and the voice, there's Daenerys, and she has nothing but the vision of conquest in her eyes. And she's slowly arriving onto the lands, and just like Jaime suspected, she's headed towards Dragonstone, the perfect location for her to settle in at. And of course, she's not alone. She has her trusted advisors, her ships behind her, and 3 very large dragons. After landing, she makes her way up the stairs, and then she finds 2 extremely large doors, followed by 2 huge dragon heads. And as always, Game of Thrones is shot in beautiful locations with excellent cinematography, as you can see, with the castle that's equally as impressive as the way up to it. She enters the throne room, where there's a throne built by one of her family for her family. She sees what's left of Stannis' war council and the table and his plans, and realizes that, well, whatever he had going didn't work for him. But what he did had no effect on what she's going to do. And now she's ready to begin her strategy and her plans. Right there where she belongs. Right there where the dragon is on the wall from her family. Next week on Game of Thrones, this is what to expect. Jon's advisors stress to him that the Targaryens cannot be trusted. Cersei explains to her people that the Mad King's daughter is just as mad as he was, and she's coming to destroy everything. Daenerys and her advisors plot and plan their strategy. A new love may be in the works. And will Baelish finally get what he deserves? Only time will tell. Next week on the Game of Thrones review. Peace. Like, subscribe, share. Till next week.